from Bass Hole Studios in Hollywood, California. You're listening to I'm an Asshole with Doug Bass. We've all been one, so let's talk about it. Now, here's your host, Doug Bass.
He's an asshole, sir.
He's an asshole.
Hey everyone, my name's Doug Bass. What's up, assholes? How you doing? Welcome to the show. Make sure you follow us on all the social media platforms. I keep saying this, but do your thing, all right? Help us out here. We're trying to get the show numbers up. You know the deal, all right? You know what I mean? We got a good show today. Rob DeRocha's here joining us.
What up, dickheads?
What up, dickheads? Exactly. And our guest today is Bryan Green, the comedian and podcast host of The Commercial Break. Bryan, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm really good. You got a real fucking professional setup and everything. You have like a slick intro.
Oh, wow. Thanks, man. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm still figuring it all out, but I appreciate
For
it.
not knowing what you're doing, that's pretty fucking slick.
No, I'm honest. On this show, I'm honest.
No, let's not be honest.
You don't want to
be
like,
I look really good right now. Hey, thank you for the compliment. Accept the compliment. Don't be an asshole.
I am an asshole, and I appreciate the compliment, but I'm also going to rip myself apart at times as well, so it's fine. But welcome to the show, Bryan. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. Rob is a comedian here in Los Angeles. Now, Bryan, you are Atlanta. Is that where you're from, Atlanta?
Yeah, we're in Atlanta. Well, I'm not from Atlanta. I was born in Chicago, but I'm here 26 years. So I'm about as close to Atlanta as you're going to get.
Gotcha. Atlanta I have not been to yet. I was supposed to go there last year for the NCAA tournament, I believe, and then it was,
Those plans got fucked.
We all know what happened. Yeah, it was crazy. My dad's a big Seton Hall college basketball fan, and he was he's always wanted to go to the NCAA, and he finally got tickets, made the hotel, the plane, all this shit, and then COVID was like, I was gonna go with him, and it was like, that's not happening now. So I was like really kind of like bummed out. But
can I ask, did you vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene?
I'm not in her district. She's actually in a pretty far out district. Now they'll say she's from Atlanta, but the truth is there's 5 major counties in Atlanta. It's a huge metropolitan complex. I mean, it's just urban sprawl as far as you can see. It's like Dallas, if you've ever been to Dallas. It's just forever and ever.
But the city of Atlanta is like booming as far as like film production, comedy, I would assume.
We now are the number 2 most filmed in location. We have the most television and movie productions, number 2 in the entire world, behind LA, and coming up on that quickly. And they just announced another 168-acre studio complex in the former site of the GM plant that used to run here. Wow. I mean, it's insane, and it all has to do with the tax benefits that the state gives, and additionally, besides that, it's great fucking weather, and it's a beautiful city. Really,
I'm from New Jersey originally, and the film industry was always booming there at one point because they had a good tax incentive as well. But I feel like Atlanta definitely, Tyler Perry, everyone took over that whole situation when that happened, and
you got to come down.
I plan on it.
Or over.
Hotlanta.
Hotlanta. No, I'm going.
Hotlanta. You got to go to Hotlanta. It's
definitely on my top.
Ludicrous.
Ludicrous.
Yeah.
That's cool though. So Bryan, so you're a stand-up comic. How long have you been doing comedy? I don't know you.
No, I'm not a stand-up comic. Actually, I want to be 100% clear about that.
Okay.
Well, I think sometimes, and I know how white people make the mistake, right? I have a comedy podcast,
right?
And I think that you just kind of naturally make the assumption, but I actually think stand-up comics have fucking talent, and I just have a talent for talking a lot on a microphone and being absurd. And so, I've been behind a microphone for a number of years. I was on radio for a hot minute, and then we had a streaming station back when that was a thing. And we started the podcast about a year and some change ago.
Great.
And so, but I've never done stand-up comedy. Like, I've been up on a couple open mics, but I've never done stand-up comedy. I have such respect for that profession and that art form. And I don't want to lump myself in, because it's one thing to stand up in front of an audience. It's one thing to get behind a microphone and then have an edit button. And it's another fucking thing altogether to get up in front of an audience and live and die by every word. that takes fucking balls, kid. And it's just not something I've done. Yeah.
Gotcha. That's true. No, I'm just again, I was like, I've only met you through Clubhouse. Which
we only know each other
been
for
great.
a few days.
Yeah. So we have a few days exactly. So I was trying to do my research, but I was like, I don't know a lot about Bryan Green, but I'm gonna find out today. I
hide it all behind I shadow box myself.
That's all good. So you started your podcast about a year ago, the Commercial Break. And did that come out of always wanting to do a podcast, a comedy podcast?
No, actually. So my wife, a couple of years ago, I work in commercial real estate as my day job.
Okay.
And I had been on radio here in Atlanta for a small amount of time. I actually worked in their business department. I worked as an executive in their sales department, Clear Channel Radio, which is the huge, conglomerate radio station. And I managed to sneak my way on air overnights on one of their stations here in Atlanta.
What do you mean sneak your way on air? Like, how did you do that?
We had this regional program director who was in charge of like 400 stations, was out of our office. And every Friday, we all got to know each other because we're working in the same office. And every Friday I would go up to his office, bring a beer, sit down in his office, talk to him about programming or whatever. And I'd basically beg him. I'd be like, give me a couple hours on one of your radio stations. I don't care which one, whatever it is.
Well, a couple hours finally, of what, though? What were you like? You had like some things planned, or like,
No, I had nothing planned. I just wanted to get behind the microphone.
That's a great opportunity, though. It's like, here's
so listen,
the show.
So wait, is this how Atlanta radio stations like managed? They're like,
this
hey,
is how all radio stations.
I wish that would happen in LA. It's like, hey, you two assholes, come do a show at our station.
Yeah, we should move to Atlanta.
We should. Brian will show us around.
Radio is the shittiest. It's the shittiest cultivator of talent that there ever has been, and it's such a huge medium, or was such a huge medium, still is really. But they don't do a good job of cultivating talent. They don't give a shit, right? It's not like it's like if you're a television star, your ass is kissed, you're cultivated, you go to acting lessons, you have makeup and stylist and publicist and wardrobe. Radio, literally, you come in one day and they give you $50,000 to do your show for 2 months, and you don't even make it 3 days because the ratings suck, or you said something that pissed off Nancy and Buckhead, Atlanta, or whatever.
The budget is gone.
And they leave.
There you go.
So this is a great story.
This is insane to me because it sounds like the wild, wild west. Because the fact that you're just saying, "Put me on," and you don't even have a plan, like
that's college radio.
Experience.
Didn't we all have a college radio show?
No, but you had to have a plan. Come on, you can't just say because you do a comedy podcast now. You must have some sort.
So what was your first show? Was it a comedic based kind of thing, or was it like?
Yeah. So I tell the guy, I say, listen, can I please have a show? Finally, he just relents and he says, Brian, I'm going to give you a show. You're going to go on at 2 a.m. on what they call this small signal station in south of Atlanta.
Graveyard
right?
shift,
So it reaches like 50. 2 in the morning, and I would record it at. That's what Stern's on. That's
oh my god! If I was at 2 a.m, I would always be making fun of people that were up at 2 a.m. Be like, the police are behind you. The police are behind you.
You don't even know the crackheads that would come out of the woodwork on this station. And it was a classic country station. And so he says, I want you to go work with this guy. He's going to show you how to like work the buttons and stuff. And so I did that. And he said,
wait, so you were doing the soundboard? Is that what it is?
I was doing everything. I was running the radio station.
What's it called? The board?
Yeah, it's called the board. And in the big stations, it's kind of like this, but in the big stations,
I got one of those.
They're like 17 feet long, right? And so the guy teaches me how to do it, and he says, there's one rule. Don't fucking talk too much. You got 1 minute in and you got 1 minute out at max. And you do that every 4 songs, not every one song, every 4 songs, do it. And he said, all I want to do is I don't want you to be a problem. If I hear anything, I got to yank you off. Like, just don't be a problem, right? And so I learned it. And within 2 weeks,
this is the most horrible directions.
I had 3 other people up there, and we were doing 30 to 40 minutes, an hour of talk, and just cutting up and doing segments and doing sketches. I learned how to like edit on the fly. I was taking phone calls, making prank phone calls.
Wait, so you did have a plan? I mean, it
was kind of. But it wasn't a plan. But once I saw the opportunity,
you were green, and you were like, it's kind of like if anyone's given an opportunity, it's like, Yeah, I know how to do that. You know,
I'm just
I can
picturing
do that.
I'm picturing rednecks going like, "What intonations is going? I want to listen to some music."
But I feel like anyone with like a creative like endeavor, like a radio or like film director or whatever, it's like if someone offered you a job and you kind of know a little bit about it, you're gonna be like fake it till you make it, and you're gonna be like,
For sure.
yeah, I can do that. I can direct this movie. Sure, like I've never done. You know, I don't know.
This
It's the
is
same
my
kind of thing.
dream job.
There
This
you
is my
go.
dream
There you
job
go.
since I was a kid listening to disc jockeys in Chicago, cutting up and doing prank phone calls. And so
Right.
I have no fucking clue what I'm going to do, but I know once I get there, I'll figure it out. And that's just kind of how it all happened. And that went on for like 6 or 7 months until we started making some jokes. And this was about the time that Barack Obama's first political campaign. And if you remember the dingbat that what's his name had as the vice president was Sarah Palin. And one of the
McCain Palin, yeah.
McCain and Palin. And so one of the people in the room started making jokes about Palin's daughter. Remember she was pregnant at the time
Bristol.
or whatever. And
had
the
a TV
phone
show.
tree lit up and we got yanked off real quick. And then
What was the joke? What was the joke?
Do you remember?
I wish I could remember, but it wasn't super bad. I'm sure I have it on tape somewhere. Maybe I'll send it to you. You could drop it in when you edit this.
Totally.
But anyway, so that's kind of started my love for comedy behind the microphone. And then I did it again. I had a streaming station where we had a number of different people doing stuff and we just weren't making any money. So it really just kind of, and we had no listeners. So it kind of fell flat on its face.
Right.
When my wife told me, she said, you got to do a podcast or a vodcast about the commercial real estate industry. Like, you know it well, there's so many fascinating stories. I did 2 episodes. One, I only aired one that I thought to myself, man, you know, the real estate industry, the one thing that developers do not like, it's airing their dirty laundry on a fucking podcast.
That's true.
And I figured I'd never do business again if I kept down that road. And so I called my best friend, Chrissy, who's now on the show. And I said, can you just be my first guest? I don't know what I'm going to do. Just like the radio station. I don't know what I'm going to do, but can you just be my first guest and we'll cut up and we'll have fun. And, 72 episodes later, here we are.
That's
And
great.
What is your show like? I mean, what do you guys talk about? What's the niche?
So I listened to 2 episodes last night when I was driving back from Palm Springs, and it's funny. I mean, you guys, I like that you do real estate during the day and then you do this comedy podcast, and it's like it's edgy. It's like you guys go into like. The one I listened to was the pubic hair,
the pubic oil,
pubic hair, etiquette, manscaping, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
what is it? What is it?
The
exactly?
commercial break is Brian's podcast. So the commercial break. What is it? Yeah, what is the story behind the name of your podcast? Is it
so? It was originally about real estate, and I just didn't have another name for the podcast, so I called it The Commercial Break, and somehow. Even though it doesn't make a lot of sense when you hear the commercial break, you're like, what is that all about? But it somehow fits the personality of the show. It's just kind of us taking a break from reality and jumping off into absurdity is how I would say it. And so, it's whatever the topics are way varied. And it's just if we can find a starting point, then we just go off into absurdity. We just riff, right? That's all we do. We just riff, we sit, we riff just like we would if we were having a couple beers.
I love that because, I mean, we do similar things on this show, and it's like, we'll cover news, and obviously we get into people's personal asshole stories and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've listened. It's a great show.
Oh, thank you.
It really is. Yeah, you're welcome.
And yours is well produced as well. I mean, I was like, oh wow, this is really put together. And you guys, you write like sketches kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's great because like. We've done that a little bit on here, like once in a while, but like we haven't like fully put in the effort as much as you. I would say, like I was like, wow, this guy's got a couple good sketches in here and stuff. I was like, this is great.
Yeah, we do that. We have a writing room every Friday with a couple of other friends that we think have a kind of a similar sense of humor. And
so you guys are saying you guys like plan it out and write it. You guys
we don't write the show, so we put bullet points. We have topics just like you guys probably do, right? Bullet points, and then we go. But we have a writing room every Friday, which has just happened over like the last 10 episodes, where we will think a little bit about where we're going to go with it. So we'll say, oh, we could go this direction or that direction.
Right.
90% of the time, we'll have like 5. What I call we have 2 minor bullet points and 3 major bullet points to get through about an hour of a show.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time, we don't even get through bullet point number 3.
Isn't that amazing how like? Isn't
direction.
that amazing how like I feel like the same way. It's like you have like this news story, this bit, whatever, and then like before you know it, you're like an hour and 20 minutes in, and you're
it's
like,
done.
Fuck,
Yeah.
it's like shit. It's like this is too long now. It's like I gotta go back
and then I think about expanding the show, but I'm pretty like I've done that before. I've tried to make it an hour and 20 minutes, and people just dropped off after 50, and it was like I was doing the show to nobody.
I think it is important, I think, to keep these like an hour, I would say. I mean, unless you have some amazing guest that you're, willing to.
And Rogan and Stern, they're doing 4 hours a day, and people listen to every.
What are your thoughts on that? Yeah, like a 3 hour, 4 hour.
No
show.
one listens to the entire thing. I've talked to fucking Brian Redband. Redband even says like the show goes way too long. He's like, I don't know why they go this long. Like he even gets fucking like, dude, cut it out.
Who is that? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with.
Oh, Brian Redband's the producer of the show. He's the one that I've talked. Whatever. I didn't sign any contracts, but either way, I've met him and I've talked about the show with him, and he's even said like, I said like, hey, great show the other day, and like it was like, yeah, it was fucking 4 hours. I'm like, yeah, I didn't listen to the whole thing.
What's interesting is because it's like when you listen to like growing up watching listening to Stern or whatever, like that show is the whole morning or whatever, and it is 2.5, 3 hours probably, and it's interesting because it's like as soon as you have a guest on, plus you're trying to do bits. It's like that can easily be a 2 hour show. Like you get into an interview with a guest, and it's like, it's like, all right, maybe I'll only talk to this person for 30 minutes, but it ends up being an hour, at least. And then you have a bit or two, and that's another 20 minutes. It's like it's crazy how the time flies, I would think. And then if you're going to edit it and all that stuff, so it's like that's why. I've noticed that you are doing now 2 episodes a week of the commercial break. When did you start doing that?
We started doing it about 4 weeks ago. So we had a network that approached us to represent us selling sponsorships.
Great.
And we were doing an episode behind the Patreon paywall. Like I see you have Cup of Coffee up there, right? So we were doing a Patreon episode behind the wall. But Patreon, like any paywall content, you really have to be ingrained in people's days before they're willing to give you $3.99 or $4.99 or $8.99 a month.
I haven't even. I haven't even got into that yet. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and listen, it'll take a while. I often say about podcasting, like you have to be a part of people's calendar, and then they're going to start paying for your content. And I think we might just be getting to that point where we're part of some people's calendars.
That's great.
And even though the audience is large-ish, right? A very small percentage of the audience was paying for Patreon. And so the guys at the network were like, X times X, if you released that show out in the wild, it's going to make so much more financial sense. Do Patreon if you want to, but just do it down the road, when you can do 3 shows. So now that there's a little bit of change coming in the door and we can afford to spend some more time on the show, that's why we went to 2 episodes. And I'll be honest with you, like when you're in the room, just probably like with you and Rob, when you're in the room and you're riffing and something's working, like you've got a flow, it feels good. An hour goes by so fucking quick. It's like, oh man, I wish we could just keep it going.
Yeah.
But I keep it formatted. So at least, I'm going to come in. We're going to talk about something small. I'm going to tell you all the bullshit about the show. I'm possibly going to drop in a commercial or 2, and then we're going to go off onto the main topic or 2. And it's usually just one main topic because we usually don't get to the second one.
That's what I mean. It's like I don't even have advertising it, so we're not even doing spots yet. And it's like, we're already covering like 2 or 3 news stories. The guests, assholes. Rob is very adamant. We do drink on the live shows on Wednesdays or Thursdays. So we're like, someone give us a booze sponsor or something. But
on an asshole podcast, the only people that are going to promote us, we're not going to get diapers.
No, well that has been the interesting thing on asshole podcast. I'm like, who is really going to be like, my product is made for assholes? Unless it's like a proctologist. I don't know. X-Lax, Preparation H. I don't know.
Yeah. Exactly. These are all perfect.
They're all
assholes.
perfect. It's just like now we're at the point of trying to figure that out. Exactly. Like bleaching asshole kits. That might be something.
Oh, right there. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Beautiful. Pube oil is perfect for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. So
I had a guy tell me, he said the comedy podcast category is bought, advertised on more than any other podcast category. And the reason is because people who are listening to comedians tend to be in a better mood, and everybody knows you buy when you're in a better mood. And so I said, because I told the guy, I said, listen, and he'd listened to our show. The guy from the network said, I go, are you worried about our content? And he goes, not one fucking bit. He goes, for every 60 advertisers that are going to want to be with you, there's going to be one that's going to go, I don't want to be with that kind of content.
Right.
And he said, and the truth is, you don't want them on your show anyway. You're not going to pitch them. You're not going to pitch Pampers. It's not going to happen.
No, exactly. Yeah, you know your audience, and you try to figure out your demographic.
Yeah, we're moving up the charts. I mean, we're like in the top 50 of stand-up comedy
for today. Yeah,
podcast
for this
today at this very moment.
But did you guys realize that's an accomplishment? Like, I mean, I
actually,
you shouldn't pat yourself on the back.
No, I'm really happy about it.
I will. And Brian, I didn't actually realize that until you sent me that thing this morning, because I was like,
I'm keeping an eye on everybody.
I know. I was like, see, like I love Brian. I feel like so. I mean, I don't know. I'm learning a lot as we go, and then I'll be honest with everyone in the audience. It's like, I'm a stand-up comic.
Well, I'm a professional.
Rob is a professional.
I know everything that's happening, so that's what I.
Rob show. I'm in the middle. Like when we start these shows, I'm like, oh my god, the live is not working. Like this thing's not working. Rob shows up and he's like, all right, where the fuck do I sit? I got this story for you. I'm bringing in this guy.
Clippers of your show.
And then I'm getting the fuck out. Like today, I told him, I'm like, we're doing 2 podcasts in a row, man. I'm like, he's like, what? We're not going to Barney's Beanery?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dean Martin. That's what I'm Dean Martin. That's what I am. Dean Martin. And I show up. I have a couple drinks. We have a good time. Exactly. But I do have things in plan. But
no, Rob is definitely. Yeah. He adds a lot to the show, and I wouldn't want to do it without him at this point.
You can tell when you listen to the show when Rob is in zone with you that it's clearly like Chrissy and I sitting in the room, right? I could never do the show by myself now. I don't know what I would do.
Well,
I
that's
really
interesting.
don't. I have no fucking clue.
So Chrissy's pretty funny on the show, and she compliments your sense of humor so well. It is interesting. It's like I've gone. I'll do some interviews by myself, like because there are like I'm saying, like there are times where it's like I end up talking to someone for an hour, like uninterrupted or whatever, and we don't even get to any bits or whatever. So like I'm doing a combination of the live show and then and it's weird right now with everyone's schedule as far as like we prefer people
don't want to come in.
Well, we prefer people to come into the studio. Do
you have people come into your studio or do you?
No, we have not had anybody come into the studio yet. Mainly because are you guys like in an actual studio? Do you guys have like actual office space?
Doesn't it look like we're in a studio, Brian?
I don't know. Well,
look around, Brian. It's magic.
You guys had that slicked up, live from the asshole studio.
Yeah, we're in a large studio. We're actually.
It looks large, but it's not.
It looks great on camera. I'm just gonna say that.
Right. So does mine, but it's literally a 4x4 box that used to be.
Yeah.
I think everyone's podcast studio, unless you're Joe Rogan, is like a closet with like some lights. And
what you're doing right now,
even Joe Rogan has a closet.
That's true.
No, he doesn't.
Well, now he's got like a bunker.
Now it's bigger. Yeah, that's a bunker.
It's a bunker. Yeah, because he's got to be careful. Joe. I go back to Joe for a second. I think anybody's followed Joe for a minute, and I don't really know much. I might know a little bit about podcasting because I'm one of those guys who dives into it. Right, when I get into it, I dive into it, and I want to know it. I want to figure out the angles. If anybody's watched Joe's podcasting career, it's like meteoric, and I don't think it could be repeated because I think he was in the right time, right place at the right time, talking the right language to the right people.
Person at the right He's not, and he was very open-minded. He brought everyone in. But it's like it's funny listening to him now, which whatever. I don't care if he listens to this. Who fucking cares?
I'd love if he listens.
No, it would be great. Yeah,
awesome. He will cross promote your show.
I do care, Rob. No.
Yeah, but if you listen to it, he's very. He's like a talk show host now, where he leans left, he leans right. He whoever's on the show. It could be Alex Jones, or it could be somebody that's like an anti-Trumper, and he sides with both of them. And it's so wishy-wash now.
But it's smart. It's smart.
I still listen to it from time to
time.
As
a podcast host because it's like. I mean, you got even on.
But that's what was so good about him before because he was genuine.
Right.
So that's what I loved about him before. Now it's so much as soon as he brought Alex
Jones. But it's a huge you got to.
Yeah, when he started bringing Alex Jones,
both audiences. It's like
when he brought Alex Jones back after he got on Spotify. When he brought Alex Jones back, I actually thought for 1 minute, I thought to myself, "What the fuck is he doing?" He's just poking the bear essentially, and maybe he has to do that now. Maybe because he's put himself in this position over the years of being this extraordinarily pragmatic, level-headed, open-minded guy who's really seeking the truth no matter where it comes from, that he has to listen to every asshole that comes his way. And having Alex Jones come in is the thing that he needed to do to make sure that people still understood he was in the game, right? That he hadn't just sold out to Spotify. Right. And I think he put himself in a really tough position. And I actually think that Joe would have made so much more money had he done this himself, had he gated his content, even old content, or just done an extra hour a day or whatever, or charged a small subscription fee, for whatever. I think he could have made so much more money.
Probably could have profited. Yeah, but I mean, that amount of money
it's like when someone throws that check at you, you're just like, you know what?
Someone
I've been doing this a long time. Fuck it. This is it. This is my cable guy, Jim Carrey.
And then he got to the point where, that is exactly what you just said right now. He got to the point where it's like he has fuck you money, and that's why he brought Alex Jones to Spotify, and that's why he was like, they were editing his fucking shit, and like that's why he was like, and then they promoted JP Sears, Mr. Awoke with JP Sears, if you know that one at all, but like,
I know JP's story because I have a friend who's actually friends with JP.
Oh, really?
And I'm not gonna go. We'll talk about it off air, but I'll just tell you that. Well, listen. It's much like Stern's story, and I still love Stern. Don't get me wrong; I've been listening to him for a long time. I'm sure you have too. You're from New Jersey.
I love Stern too. I think everyone loves Stern. Anybody that loves radio loves Stern.
Yeah, he's the
Stern changed the game, and he constantly changed himself to go along with the game. Absolutely. He made the game up as he went along, and everyone else followed. And so now Stern is away from the Sybian and porn stars and all this other stuff. He's gotten so much more mature. But the truth is, so have I, and so has most of his audience, and they've come along with him on that journey.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
And just his interview skills are just amazing.
Oh, they're mind blowing. It's
like fucking unbelievable.
It's like there's times where it's like now I got the Sirius app and all that shit, and it's like I just go to the interview, and it's like, all right, I still enjoy, like I listen to it in the car, but it's like I still enjoy the crazy crazy characters and shit.
I
love all the fartness and all that shit.
But the interviews, I'm like, wow, this is the best.
I love queefs.
This is the best interviewer out there, and it's like,
Guys, I never liked Lady Gaga until Lady Gaga was interviewed by Howard Stern, and I was like, oh, I fucking love her now. Like, it's like, that's how good his interview skills are.
Exactly.
I just like Stern has changed himself constantly, and that's why Stern is still relevant all these years. And Joe, I think, is trying to do in his own way the same thing, right? He's trying to change his game so he's relevant. But it's a little bit of a shock to the system sometimes when you see Joe doing some things or hear him saying some things, like he does a 4-hour interview with Bernie Sanders. And you're like, holy fucking
but it's
shit,
like,
Bernie fucking Sanders is actually making goddamn sense. Yeah.
But I'm curious.
And then he has Alex Jones on 3 days later, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing, man?
And it's 4 hours, and it's like, you go back.
He's a genius then, right?
You go back to like, is that too long? Because it's like, I don't know, the average podcast listener, like I listen to him and I put it on ×2 fast or whatever, and I'll listen to like usually 45 to an hour.
2 hours is what I listen to, and then I'm done. And I can't listen to
2 hours
is
anymore.
Your
number?
Yeah.
I think the numbers bear out that most of us in the comedy podcast category, we got about 40 minutes for the audience to pay attention to us for a good long while until we get to a point where we can start spreading it out. If you look, some of the top comedy podcasters, right? They're doing more than an hour, frequently doing an hour, hour and a half. Dax Shepard, those smart list guys.
Corolla does an hour. Bateman. Corolla does 1 hour. He separates it and does like one has news or whatever, and one has just the guest. But he does 2 hours total, and that's what I usually listen to. I'm not a right wing nut or anything.
I kind of like that
though,
because it's like it's interesting. Like I was saying, like usually, like right now, it's like I'll do one interview alone or whatever, and that's usually
he does that
45 to an hour. But then it's like, today we had another comedian here, and I was like, see, like when a comic's in the room with all of us, the three of us, it's like that's a good hour of entertainment, so it's like, why not have? And there's certain guests that I think will be better for one-on-one, just an interview, and then it's like other guests, it's like get the drinks out and let's have fun, So
I think that if I always say this about our podcast, and listen, I try and keep it like 45 and under, right? But there are times when it goes over. And this is what I say. I always tell this to Chrissy before we get started on recording day. I say, listen, if we're adding value, if it's funny and we're adding value and we think it's going, don't stop, right? I'll edit it. I'll figure out a way to get it under, or we'll just let it go a little longer. So some episodes are up to an hour. And the truth is that since we've cut our episodes down to about 45 minutes, we have incredible listen through rates. Like people listen to the whole show. Yeah. Exactly. And occasionally when we go over the hour and we go over to an hour or even a little bit above, the listening rates don't change. People still listen all the way through. But when we were constantly over an hour, people were like, after 45, 50 minutes, they were like, see you later.
That's the end. You'll have your hardcore fans that will listen to the whole hour and 10 or whatever it is. And then, people that will be like, a half hour is good enough for me.
You know when we know we're done is basically when we're like, what else?
What else? Yeah.
So
and then after that, it's like, let's wrap it up. We know the hour's coming.
When the 6-pack has no more, it's
exactly.
we gotta go.
Do you guys ever have a show? I have a question for you because I see your interaction similar to the ones that Hody and I have. Do you guys ever have a show where you just know, the both of you intuitively, man, that fucking sucked like that blue donkey dick? Like you record something.
Well, we interviewed the con man.
Yeah, I have an episode that I haven't edited yet. It's like we did it a month ago.
Oh my god, it's awful.
It's a con artist, Matthew Cox. He's like the Wolf of Wall Street of
real estate,
credit card fraud.
Mortgage real estate
Did
bubble.
Tyler set you up with this?
Yes, Tyler. Yes, Tyler Sherman, right? Yes,
Tyler Sherman. I know Tyler. I've known him for many years. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I met him on Clubhouse. He seems like a great guy.
Have you interviewed this guy or no?
Have you interviewed him?
Listen. I'm not going to interview him. You know why? It doesn't fit my mold. Why? I mean, it's like I know Tyler's been trying to pitch me, and listen, I'm sure Matthew's an interesting human being, right? I don't want to take away.
He's a dick, dude. He came on here.
But that's the thing.
I'll tell you this much: like
we have an asshole podcast, so like when people started pitching me criminals, and I'm like, yeah, they're assholes.
Yeah,
like,
that sounds great.
I should have a couple criminal assholes maybe on. They're not comics; they're criminals. So it's like they're gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a different show. It's not gonna be funny maybe the whole time, So
he was a fucking asshole, relevant. But he was an asshole to the point where like he wasn't funny. He was telling us how he was ripping off people. I looked up interviews of him. He was like laughing on other like news stations about what he was doing. I mean, he ruined people's lives. And then he comes on here and then like he starts attacking us.
He's like, you guys are comedians. You guys do this professionally. You're comedians.
Then he starts attacking us, and then finally, but not attacking us like in a really bad way, but like just being very snarky. So then I at a point, like I told him, I'm like, hey man, I'm being respectful, because like I didn't know how to respond to him because he was this guy's like talking about ripping off people.
No, it's
ruining people's lives.
It's literally the one episode that we have done. I've had it on my desktop for like a month, and I'm like, I literally sit down, like, because I started doing like these eCam. It's easier to edit now, and I'm just like, I keep looking at the file, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta edit this thing.
I got one of those guys.
It's like one of them, and I'm just like, I think it could be interesting and good, but like I want it to be like a half hour, 40 minutes, and it's like it's over an hour, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta go.
I just have run into the very first time the interview that will never air. Like I've got the interview that will never air.
Yeah,
it will never see the light of fucking day. All right. Because I'll tell you. Ready? I'm not going to name names.
Who was? Oh, you got to name the guest. Come on, name.
No, we want to save it, Brian.
No, I really don't want to because we're still in that sensitive time. Give me another 3
Donald
months and
Trump?
I'll name the guest.
Okay, Matt Gaetz.
Donald Trump. I wouldn't be sitting here with you guys. I'd be like, here comes the money.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Donald, can you tell those folks to send me some money?
I got the interview of Donald Trump.
So so this guy, he approaches us and he says, hey, listen, I got like, X amount of social media followers. I get a lot of likes. I'm on TikTok, all this other stuff.
Right.
And so I look at a couple of his things and I'm like, yeah, it's okay. He's a stand-up comedian. I'm like, yeah, all right, we could probably work with this guy. Let's, we'll cut our chops early in the season with this guy. So he comes on and I literally spend all night the night before writing up his TikTok set, right? Or his Instagram set, like joke after joke, coronavirus, the New York mayor, blah, 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 blah. I am literally taking bowling pins and I am putting them across the fucking internet into his bedroom where he can take his balls and just knock them down. And so he gets on and he's like, yeah. And I go, hey man, what do you think about, the handling of the coronavirus? And he goes, yeah, a lot of people are dying. I don't know if you know this, but it wasn't in the Civil War. Most people didn't die from bullet wounds. They died from ancillary infections. Do you know how many people lost eyeballs in the Civil War? It was really quite a sad time. And then he goes off for the next 20 fucking minutes telling us about how he's a history buff and he's read about how many eyeballs fell out.
Was it Mel
Civil
Gibson?
War. And then he's telling these. He was talking about anti-Semitism for another 20 minutes, and then he wrapped it all up with this little gem. You ready for this, guys?
Sure.
I watched Breaking Bad during the pandemic, but I really got to tell you that Walter White, he's quite a misogynist, and I just don't know if I can look at it the same way again. And I was like, come on, man. How can you make yourself even more unfunny than you were for the last 40 minutes? Call Walter White a misogynist and drop the mic. It's like, God damn, man. You're a stand-up comic.
Yeah, that's what's interesting, and it's like I like crazy character kind of people, and it's like, and like I don't know if you've started to do live shows at all, but
we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we started doing live shows, and have people call in, that kind of thing, and I think those kind of people, like, if we could get them to call in, like I'm fine with that for like 3 minutes, you know what I mean, or whatever, and it's like then get the fuck off the phone. But like, like a whole segment of interviewing them, no, it's like,
what do you do with that?
Yeah, exactly. But like a call in, sure, because it's like, this guy's nuts. We're gonna make fun of him. We're gonna talk to him for a couple minutes, and then we're gonna hang up on him.
Yeah,
so
we can take this somewhere.
Right. So it's like I embrace the crazy people like that, but I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to. They're not getting a whole 40-minute episode. No way. You got to screen
Chrissy was
people.
Like stomping my foot. She was like pressing on my foot, but begging to get out of the interview. She's like, he won't even smile. I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do here. Yeah. We're just gonna have to suffer through it, and I'm gonna have to ghost him. I'm gonna have to make up excuses by text message why your episode never.
Was he a QAnon believer?
No, he was the exact opposite. Listen, really? But I'd love to get a QAnon. I had this idea that like, let's get a couple QAnon believers on the air, and then we can talk them through why they might have rocks in their socks, right?
Rob really wants to get one, yeah.
Yeah, and I reached out to a couple guys on a couple boards, and I said, hey guys, listen, I got a podcast. I just want to talk to you about your beliefs, and if you're open-minded, we'll have a discussion about it, right?
Yeah.
And they just went into the talking points. They're like, sure, I'll come on, but is there global? Do you have any global conspiracies? Is this being recorded for future? And I'm like, come on, I just want you to come on the podcast.
That's what I mean. That's a good phone call for like 3 minutes. I feel like.
Yeah, you can get one of them on the air. I feel like they've already lost their friends
before
and family.
They get mad.
Yeah,
exactly. They don't give a shit about your podcast.
No, they don't.
You already lost your friends and family. Why don't you come on my podcast?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, this is the Asshole Podcast, and this is the point of the show where we dive into an asshole story. Is there a time in your life, could be an isolated incident, a chunk of time in your life, maybe you're one now and you're dealing with it, maybe someone was an asshole to you, maybe someone thought you were an asshole and you weren't, anything along those lines that you'd love to share with our audience?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this all day. So I just want to ask, which decade do you want to pick from? Do you want to go 70s, 80s, 90s, or today?
I mean, go ahead with one of your favorites, and then maybe sometimes we
the best one.
Sometimes we like to press our guests because a lot of people come on here and they give like a mediocre one, and then we're like, I think you got something better. So let's see what you got.
So, I mean, listen, there's a time period certainly in my life when I think I was an asshole. I had a pretty raging addiction to cocaine, and I was acting like an asshole, right? When I was working in the restaurant business.
Cocaine makes you an asshole, yes.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it starts off all fine and dandy, but then, when you're doing it in your bedroom and you calling the coke dealer late at night,
you start relying on it, sure.
Yeah, but I think probably the time.
You know what? I'm sorry. This is hilarious.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're saying you used to be a cokehead because you don't sound like one, but go ahead. Keep going.
How does a cokehead sound, Rob?
I don't know. You just seem like a little crazy or whatever. You just seem so normal.
He's not one now. It's like
I'm not one now. It's 20 years past.
If he was like, "Hi, I'm a coke addict," then maybe he would have a certain sound.
It's going great over here, man. It's going great. Excuse me for a second.
You're not jawing your mouth. All right.
Go ahead.
So I think I'll talk about a specific moment in time when I was an asshole. During that particular period of time, I met a girl at a concert in Charleston, South Carolina, which is like a 9-hour drive away from here, 9-hour drive away from here. And we met and we hooked up and we stayed in communication for the next couple of weeks. And she made plans to come to Atlanta. She came to Atlanta. We had a great weekend. Everything was wonderful, and we continued to communicate, long distance. We made these plans to go down to a place called Amelia Island, Florida, which is, a couple hours down the coast, down the Florida coast. And I said, listen, I'm going to pick, you know what I'll do? Why don't you drive from Charleston and meet me somewhere on the coast, like near Savannah, a couple hours away from where you are, but 4 hours away from Amelia. I'll pick you up and we can take the drive down the rest of the coast together, which we did. When we got there and we got into the hotel room, and I don't know, she showed up. I picked her up at a bar, like at a Hooters or a Chili's or something. And she had already been drinking. Classy. Yeah. Say classy.
Love Hooters. Love Hooters.
She used to work at Hooters. Did you work at a Hooters?
That was like one of my summer jobs.
Doug worked at a Hooters and he looked horrible in his Hooters outfit.
Worst job I've ever had, by the way.
So I pick her up and she had already been drinking, and I just got in a really irritated mood with how drunk she was when she got in the car, and you got to remember I had a pretty short fuse because I was just kind of generally coked up, right?
Yeah.
And we get down to this island and we check into the hotel, and when we get into the hotel, I really didn't have any work to do, but she's like, oh, let's go out and we'll see whatever. Let's go have some more drinks down. And I'm like, no, you know what? I'm just going to sit here. I got to work. I got to do some work. I had no work to do, but I just was like, I'm going to fucking work. I got to work. Yeah. And so I opened up the laptop and she's like, well, I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to go and go, do whatever and give me a call and we'll meet up. And I was like, okay. Yeah. So I call her a couple hours later. And I go to the bar that she's at. She's sitting next to some guy. She's talking to the guy. Perfectly friendly conversation. I'm sure that there's nothing going on between them. But for some reason, in my little pea brain, I'm all upset about this, right? I'm upset she got into the car drunk. I'm upset she wants to leave the hotel directly after we get there, after we've been driving, on the road for 7 hours listening to her yammering drunk. And now I'm upset she's sitting next to some guy at a bar, which, she could have just been sitting next to some guy at a bar.
Right.
And so I walk in and I walk directly the fuck back out. I'm like, you know what? I'm not dealing with this bullshit. I didn't come all the way down here to, have you dealing with some guy. And I go back to the hotel room. A couple hours later, she comes up to the hotel room, now more inebriated than she was before. And she starts yelling at me. She's like, I don't know why you just turned into an asshole. All I wanted to do was come down here and have a great time. Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. To which I responded, good luck finding a ride home. And I got in my car and I drove back to Atlanta.
Wow.
And I left her in Amelia Island, Florida by herself. Now, all right. At the moment, it felt like we were in an argument and I didn't want to deal with it, right? And it felt like one of those things where I felt justified for doing what I did, but I had no justification for doing what I did. I should have cooled off, gone somewhere, cooled off, and then gone and picked her back up.
How old were you when you did this?
Probably 21 or 22 years old.
And she was the same age as you or around there?
She was she was a little bit older than I was, maybe 23
You're
24
definitely
years old.
an asshole for doing that. That's a big asshole move.
That is.
At the same time, it's a moment in time where you're young and you know now looking back at it that you're an asshole.
That's interesting though, because it's I think I definitely have done something fuck you and driven off from someone, leaving them somewhere.
I'm trying to remember if I've ever done that. I don't think I've ever done that.
I've done that, but I've gotten down the street and I'm like, no, yes. and I turn around and come back. The illusion of hey, you're gonna get fucked here. I'm leaving. But then I come around or I park behind them and I'm like, hey, I'm still here.
Yeah, you're the gentleman.
But you actually went back to Atlanta.
I would
that's
never.
Balls.
Actually,
that's balls, Brian.
I've never done that. I've had a girl leave my car and I drive and
drove off.
No.
Yeah.
I chase her. I drive around the block and I keep on saying, come back in the car. Come back in the car, please. And other people are watching. And she's like, fuck you. You're an asshole.
Where was this again? The middle school down the street?
No, this is down the street. You know what? This happened. Well, I was driving a white van and I had candy. Yeah. Whatever. It's
You're
a
known
different
for
thing.
that in these parts.
It's a different time. It was in the early 90s. Whatever.
You can get away with
that. I got my comeuppance when I was 30 years old, and I went to a wedding with a girl that I was dating. And she was one of these people that would just fly off the handle for no reason whatsoever. We've all been in a relationship with someone like this, literally no reason. I was driving her car. We were at a wedding in New Orleans. you know how confusing New Orleans is to drive in if you've ever been there?
I've been there, but I've never driven there. Yeah.
Okay. It's insane. Like literally, the roads are 500 years old. And if you don't take the left here, you have to go all the way back down to Mississippi and come back. And it's crazy. So we're trying to figure out where we're going. And I take a wrong turn. And this girl lights the fuck up. I mean, she's screaming, she's yelling, blah, 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 blah. I eventually end up in the lower 9th ward, where I pull into a gas station to get myself a pack of cigarettes because I need to really cool down, right? And at the time, I was smoking cigarettes. I get out of the car. I grab the $5 bill that I had sitting in the middle console, and I go to get a pack of cigarettes. And when I come back out, she's gone. 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 And I have no cell phone. I have no money. I have no wallet. I have a pack of cigarettes, and I don't even have a fucking lighter. And I was in the lower 9th ward. I walked to a McDonald's and I started making phone. I begged somebody to please let me use their cell phone. At that time, there were still payphones outside, a couple of them. And I begged the lady behind the counter, can I please have a couple quarters? They were nice enough to see that this white boy needs some help. He's in trouble. Yeah. And probably about 6.5 hours later, she came back to get me after much negotiation and chagrin and friends calling friends and all this other stuff. So I got my comeuppance for sure.
So she finally came back. Yeah.
Yeah, she finally came back and got me. But this
Did
particular
she know
girl,
the other girl? Revenge.
She knew of the other girl. I mean,
That's
this
scary.
Isn't a story
though.
I'm necessarily
it's
proud
like,
about.
I feel like we've all been in like some weird situation like that, where it's like, you're like young enough, or like in college.
But being left alone, I don't think I've ever been in a situation where like. I mean, only one time, but like I don't think anyone was mad at me. It was more like they just thought I left.
I've been stranded. This is.
I've been stranded.
Well, it's like now it's so easy with like Uber and Lyft and shit. Like you just get a ride. Whatever. But it's like like I remember like times like you didn't have a car and you walked somewhere, or so you got a ride somewhere, and then your ride left.
Scary.
And
life.
you're like, I don't know where I am. And then, like I remember like walking down a mountain once in Pittsburgh where I went to school, like to get back to downtown Pittsburgh to like go back home somehow, and it was just like, this is nuts. Yeah, it's like crazy shit like that where you don't realize like you're so vulnerable without a car or whoever brought you somewhere. It's like they're in charge. You just trust them with wherever you're going.
Those poor frontiersmen. The frontiersmen.
Yeah.
Lewis and Clark, what the fuck? Right. Where were they going, huh?
These were our problems. And then, that is interesting. It's like every generation has like travel problems somehow.
Yeah, they have their travel
No,
issues.
I don't think we have
The horse died. How are we getting back? I don't know.
There's no more travel problems now. That is obsolete. Everyone has a phone. The only travel problem now is if your phone dies, or if you're in an area where you don't have reception.
But that is the equivalent of a horse and buggy breaking down back in the day. No?
I guess so, yeah.
It's like...
my phone died. I can't get an Uber. What the fuck am I supposed to do? Get a horse?
I'll never forget the feeling that I had when I got back home to Atlanta. And now, I've had many hours to cool off and realize that while she was acting obnoxious at the very least, there was no call for getting up out of the hotel room at 3:00 in the morning and driving back to Atlanta. Right. But I just remember feeling like such a fucking douche. Like, oh my God, this poor girl, her car is 4 hours away in Savannah and she's down in
You're
Florida.
An asshole.
I'm an asshole.
Well, that's why Brian agreed to come on the show.
But you're a cokehead asshole, so it's all right.
Well,
yeah, you were on coke during this, no?
And you were young.
No, I wasn't during this particular time.
Okay, all right. Let's clear that up.
But I was working in the restaurant business, and listen, there was just a restaurant and bar business. Then there was a lot of fucking
your testosterone was really high. You're 21 years old.
Well, we're all 21. You do stupid fucking shit.
Oh
I can never see myself doing that again. Like now, I'm just so rational and calm. It's really.
I could never do what you did.
I
could never do what you did.
Rob, what are you talking about? You left me last week in downtown LA.
What are you talking about?
You're like, fuck you and your podcast, asshole.
That's exactly what I said. And I drove off in my Honda Civic drunk.
Never doing a Twitch with you again. Go fuck ourselves.
Go Twitch yourself. Yeah, exactly.
We'll never read hate comments again together.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, those definitely are some good asshole stories, Brian. Thank you for.
What a dick.
What a dick, Brian. No.
And you know what? We have the girl on the line right now. She's calling in.
Yeah,
She's
we have her here. We have her here in the studio.
Surprise!
That's our joke. We always go to
fucking dick.
We always go to like after someone tells their story, we're like, well, we have them here right now. And it's like, our dream one day is to actually have them.
Exactly. That is my dream. Like to get the person that was wrong.
I know. That will require a lot of screening, pre-screening the asshole story, and setting up the plane ride. For the
and we need someone that's really good at improv, because right now we only have assholes that are not good at improv, and they call up and like today someone was on the show, like they smashed a ray gun and they called in there. My name's Ray and I own a ray gun store.
It's the same guy calling in every week.
Yeah, it's the same guy. How many callers do you guys have in a week?
We
average 2.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
But you guys actually have people that are watching you live.
We do have like a handful of people that are watching live, which has been interesting. So,
how many episodes are you in on the show?
This is like 28 to 30, something like that. Yeah,
you guys are on your 28 to 30 episode. You're
on
the charts.
We're young,
and you're watching, and you're having people watch you live. I would say that you guys should give yourself a big old fucking pat on the back, because that is quite an accomplishment. 28 episodes
coming from you, that means a lot. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. And it's like we're learning as we go, and we're putting everything we want into this show. So we hope people follow, and that brings me to you setting up the Comedy Podcast Club on Clubhouse, which is an awesome thing for you to do. Thank you. You are really involved on Clubhouse with Club Pod, and now branching off into your own club, Comedy Podcast Club. Was this something that I don't know how long you've been on Clubhouse. I'm like 2 months in, I think, so I'm fairly new to it. Is this something that you always kind of envisioned going down that road, starting your own room and that kind of thing?
When I got the invite back in October, I mean, no one's been on it for very long, right? It's not even, I think it's just a year old now.
Yeah.
Just a year old for most people. I think they were had it in beta for 6 months amongst like 150,000 friends, right? But when I got the invite in October, I had no idea what it was. The girl that I do a lot of rooms with, Allison Hare, she said, you got to get on this. It's amazing. I don't know what we're going to do with it, but we got to do something with it. And Allison and I were in business doing some other podcast related stuff. And when I first got on, I had no real idea. Like, I liked it, but I had no idea how it worked or what was going on, or do I raise my hand? Do I not raise my hand? Should I talk? I don't want to talk. I don't want.
Right.
And then we figured it out, and we started getting some followers. And I knew Steve Olsher, who is the editor-in-chief of Podcast Magazine, and he reached out to a couple of us and said, "Hey, I started this Club Pod. I want you to. Would you like to do rooms every week inside Club Pod? You'll grow your following. You'll help me grow my following and the members inside of Club Pod. And now that club is the third largest club inside of Clubhouse is Club Pod.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And but pretty quickly as I got onto Club Pod and started moderating rooms, I knew that no one was paying attention to the comedy podcast category. It very much is a different category. It's a different breed.
I agree. I mean, I love Clubhouse and a lot of the rooms you go in. There's a lot of rooms about like making podcasts, and it's like it's all great information and interesting, but it's like okay, it's like how many podcasts am I going to listen to about starting a podcast, or like what to do with the podcast, blah 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 blah. Yeah. And it's all helpful information, but you're right. The comedy category is neglected in a way, I think, and I think you starting the club is a great way to filter in people that are specifically looking for comedy podcasts and want to get involved and are starting them or already have them and whatnot. And so I appreciate you reaching out to me as far as trying to get involved.
Or a comedy murder podcast.
Comedy murder podcast.
Murder podcast. It's comedy.
Yeah, maybe there's
murder.
a hybrid of true crime.
There is a comedy
True
murder
crime
podcast
is number one.
Rather
true
popular.
crime's very popular. Yes.
True crime is number one.
Yeah.
It is number one and killing it.
Comedy podcasts are the largest segment. Like, there's more comedy podcasts or categorized that than any other type of podcast. And listen, because it's a low barrier to entry. Everybody thinks they can get with their friend and be funny. And that might to some degree be true. Whether or not that translates out there to the world, who knows? But one of the things I really liked about Club Pod was there is a community of podcasters that are supporting each other by free-flowing information, jumping on each other's podcasts, doing all this other stuff. Comedy podcasters, I've met not as many as I've met many other types of podcasters. And I think comedians in general, we tend to be a little guarded about our stuff. And, you can spend 10 years making the perfect 2 minutes of comedy.
Right.
And you don't want to give that away to everybody, or the secrets about how you did that to everybody, or, because that's just something you have to go through on your own to figure out your own sense of humor. But I would like the comedy podcast category to have some place to go to, kind of just focus on us. Like what are our challenges, and what are the things we're dealing with, and how do we monetize our podcast, and how do we grow audiences? And at the same time, have a place where our audiences can go to hear other funny people doing other funny things on Clubhouse. And they'll go, oh, I want to listen to that guy or that girl's podcast because they were really funny on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that was my idea. And I had the idea many months, back in December or whenever it was, to start it. But at that time, Clubhouse was only letting very few people start clubs.
That was the thing. It's like I got on there and I was like, all right, like I started like Assholes Anonymous on there because I was like, well, it goes with the podcast. But I'm like, I don't know if it's going to take off or what. And I was like, and then when you reached out, I was like, well, it'd be interesting to record. Because I've tried like recording this show in Clubhouse a little bit. And it's like, no one really, 1 or 2 people come in, 3 people, whatever. So it's like, taking that to the next level of trying to incorporate that into this is something that, is interesting. And I think we both have an interest in at some point. It is interesting to see like who joins what clubs and and whatnot. But it's an interesting app because it's like there's so many brilliant things going on in there, but then they're like lost forever. Like it is a podcast. It's a live podcast, but it's like most people are not recording it, so it's like, oh my God, this one person came in with this awesome story and we had this awesome moment, but it's like, unless you were there, it never happened,
I liken it to this. Like you, who's your favorite band or musician?
Springsteen, favorite.
Salt and Pepper.
I knew you were going to say Springsteen. I fucking love Springsteen.
The jersey gives it away. Yeah.
So let's say there's nothing's ever going to replicate going to a Springsteen concert. It's a moment in time. It's a snapshot. You hear, see, smell, taste things, and your mind is just going to always remember that time that you went to the garden or wherever and you saw them and blah blah blah. Right, but there's always going to be a recording out there on YouTube that you can go back and look at, but it's never going to be the experience that you had inside of the room.
Yeah. And
that's what I like in Clubhouse too, is that there are always going to be these live events that are going on, and you had to have been there. Like, when Elon Musk is in the room and you get a chance to go up there and talk, right? And it's like, I'll never replicate that, but somebody recorded it for posterity's sake, and you can always go back and listen to it. How podcasts and Clubhouse live and grow together, I don't know quite yet where that ends, but what I do know is they're definitely a match made in heaven, and something's going to happen. By starting the Comedy Podcast Club, which anybody listening can go and join.
Absolutely.
If we get together as a category, and some of us independents, help each other, a rising tide floats all boats, so to speak, and it can only help us if there's tens of thousands of members in this club listening to your show live, because it's the power of the club and the power of your comedy together, and you can record that, for other people to listen to down the road. So. Yeah,
and like you said, I think it's the beginning of this, and we don't know exactly where it's going, but it's a great opportunity to get in early. And if people want to follow the Comedy Podcast Club on Clubhouse, you can find that on there, and as well as Brian's podcast, the Commercial Break podcast, at the Commercial Break is your handle, I believe, on Instagram. And
on Instagram, yep.
You can download and subscribe to his podcast wherever you get your podcast fix, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that stuff. So do yourself a favor and download it, because it's pretty damn funny.
Get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Get it.
Well, Brian,
hey, I want to thank you real quick, Rob and Doug, for having me tonight. I actually have had a lot of fun. I've done a couple of these with other podcasters, and I can definitively say this has been the one that's been the most fun. So I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
We do appreciate that. Well,
thanks, and you were an entertaining guest. Thank
absolutely.
You
for being very entertaining. Well, there's only one way we usually end this show, and that's by stating your name and saying that you are an asshole.
My name is Bryan Green, and I am most definitely an asshole.
Oh, there he is.
There you go, folks. Bryan Green. He's an asshole, but he redeemed himself by coming on the show today to talk about his asshole stories. So we thank him for that.
Wait, we have a caller. It's the girl from.
Always last minute. Yeah, it's the girl. Yeah, exactly.
That would be the greatest if she called right now and be like, "You fucking dick."
We really need to have an actor just on call, like at the end.
Yeah,
of every
you do.
Episode.
You need.
What if she called and
she
said she was still there and she raised a family and everything just because she was
still waiting for my ride back.
She stayed there for the next 7 days, by the way. with the guy.
Oh, you
from
know
the bar.
Oh,
I know because she posted it all on Facebook, and then weeks later contacted me. Yeah.
You're not an asshole now. Wow. No, you just ruined the story.
Me to come to Atlanta, and I told her, well, listen, I mean, just that moment in time, that snapshot, I was an asshole. No. But what happened
definitely
afterwards...
an asshole thing. Yeah, absolutely.
She was in survival mode. She needed to survive.
She was.
Yeah.
I mean, she went right back down to the bar and got the guy that she was talking to. And
she just left me. I need a ride. 7 days. Now she's sex trafficked. It's all your fault.
She had options as well. It's like nowadays a girl's like, hey, give me a ride. All right,
Yeah. And hey, listen, who can blame her? I left her there. So.
Exactly. Well, you know what? We're all better people. We've learned from this story. Don't leave your friend, your date.
I love how you left that part out.
But, if you're left somewhere, just call an Uber.
That story will never happen again. That's
a moment in time.
Never again.
All right. Well, Bryan Green at the commercial break. Make sure you follow him on there and join us on Clubhouse at the Comedy Podcast Club room. Rob DeRocha's here. My name's Doug Bass. And remember, folks, don't be an asshole. But if you are, laugh about it and talk about it. Bye.
You've been listening to I'm an Asshole with Doug Bass. Please subscribe to us on all streaming platforms. Have a good asshole story? Email us at doug@dougbasscomedy.com. We'll see you next time.